Alright, good afternoon folks. Today I'm going to show you how to cut up and handle a goose. A goose is a beautiful bird and you shouldn't feel intimidated by working with it because the same method that you're going to use for cutting up a chicken is the same way you're going to do a goose. The only difference is that, as you can see, a goose has a lot of fat. So when you first get your goose from the store, you're going to open up the cavity, and I would defrost it in the fridge. It should take about 3 to 4 days because it is a larger bird. You're going to go into the cavity, and usually inside, as you'll see, I've already removed and cleaned the innards. We're going to save all these. Everything has a use. So the first thing you'll find is the neck, and the neck makes an excellent gravy. So take this out. Some people even like to eat it. People like myself. Has a lot of flavor to it, but because it has so much flavor, we're gonna make a really nice gravy for the goose. The other thing that you'll find is a little bag, usually a little paper or plastic bag, and in there you will find the liver, which I usually save. I'll stock it up in the freezer with some of the other liver, and I'll make a pate later on down the road if I'm having company over. Something I can do in advance and just throw in the freezer and pop it out. Next thing you have here will be the heart. Now, the heart, as well as what is known as the gizzard, it's a really tough piece of meat. So the heart and the gizzard have a lot of flavor, like the neck. So we're going to save these, and we're going to do a broth with it. The liver, however, I set that aside, and I don't use it to make a gravy. Some people do, but there are a lot of people who don't like liver and don't like the taste of it. So it's something I'll always leave out, and you can always saute it or dice it up and throw it in at the end. If you like a little bit of the texture and flavor, that earthy flavor of the liver, you're welcome to use it. But like I said, stick with these, and we reserve those for later. Now the next thing, because the goose is so fatty, you're going to find a lot of fat around the top, the bottom here, and you can actually just pull this off. You're going to want to remove it, otherwise you're going to have, a lot of times you can just pull it instead of cutting it. It's up to you. Maybe a little bit easier to cut some of it. I'm going to take that extra fat off, and this is good. We're going to put it aside, and we're going to render that fat and save that fat. Animal fat is excellent. It's full of flavor. And also, because this is a goose, more than likely this bird had a free-range diet. So it's not the worst thing for you. So we're going to take the rest of it here. You can see this big piece of fat. I'm going to cut that out. Make sure that when you're cutting up a bird or steak or whatever it is, you want to have a really sharp boning knife. And there's a big myth behind people being afraid of sharp knives and cutting themselves, but the opposite is actually true, that when your knife is not sharp is when you're more prone to cut yourself. So use a nice sharp knife. It'll come off very easily. And yeah, like I said, we're going to render this down just as you would duck fat. So we'll set that aside. Okay. Before we go into cutting and separating the parts, find the top here. We've got some more excess skin and fat, and nobody's really going to be eating this part. So again, this is going to drain a lot when you start cooking. So I'm going to trim some of this off. And this is just the skin from the neck. Set that aside with the rest of your rendering fat. And take a look around. Got some more fat here I'm going to cut off. Always cut away from you, not towards you. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to turn them over. And of course I already washed them, patted them dry. Try to clean it up a little bit. And then the next thing you're going to do, it depends on how you want to cook your goose. If you want to, some people cook it whole, but the problem with cooking it whole is that the breast meat is going to be done faster than the dark meat, like the legs and the wing joint. So what I like to do is separate the legs and the wings and the breast meat. There's a lot of different techniques. People have different methods, but what I like to do is get in there and first start separating these joints. And just like a chicken, there's almost like a pattern. If you use your fingers and feel a groove, anywhere that you feel a groove or some give or indentation is where you want to start cutting. So I feel it right here. So I'm going to slice the meat here and start going in. And as you start to see it, you can kind of see it start pulling away here. Just cut through this tissue here. And then you see how it just naturally will separate once I found that indentation. You see where the thigh is going to separate away from the bones, the backbones. Alright, so now we want to come in here. Yeah, we're going to cut the thigh away a little bit more. And then, you know, sometimes you can cut the wing joint as well. As you can see here, it looks like they cut off the second to last joint. So this will make it a little bit easier for us. So all we got to do is remove this little drumette right here. Okay. I'm going to follow around, and as I would do with the chicken, you want to take that thigh and leg, and while holding with the other hand, gently pop it back. Or a little bit forcefully, depending on, this is a bigger bird. You're going to pop it back and dislocate that joint. And when you do, you will often hear a pop. And you'll see it right here. When you come down around, try to keep as much meat on that as possible. Got the little oyster here, and as you can see, here's the bone. I don't know if you can see that. Pop back right there, and we're just gonna follow along again. Cut through there, and we're gonna pull it up. Use gravity to help us cut, and cut that off. And then there you have your thigh and drumstick. You can keep it together like this, or you can separate it further. But for now, we'll stick with that. So there's that one piece. And then we're going to come in on the other side. Same thing. Use your fingers to feel the indentation between the breast and the thigh and start to cut. We'll see. We'll start to pull away. You know you're doing it right if you're not hitting any bone or you're not really slicing through flesh. It gets better with time, so the best thing to do is really practice. And I do recommend practicing on chickens first since they're cheaper, just to kind of get the hang of it. So as you can see again, how this beautifully separates for us right there. Okay. Trying to keep as much of the meat as possible on the bird. this piece. Okay, and again, we've gotten that far, now we're gonna flip them over. As you turn them over, hold them down with one hand, pop back. Kind of heard that pop that time. You can see it right away, it's right there. So we're gonna use this as a marker. I know I've separated the bone here, so there's no bone to cut through. So I'm gonna take my knife and carefully watch where my other hand is. Slice through, there we go. And then slice down. And if you pull the leg up, it will slice right through. Here we have it. Okay. This part here, this is great for making soup and stock. So this is another thing if we want to make a really nice stock. Or some people like to kind of nibble on the back section. There's a little bit of meat, but it's mostly fat and bone. So I'm probably going to do stock with that. Alright, now with the wing, we're going to come in here, separate some of the skin so we can see, and start pulling it down so that we can get to the joint. And again, you can kind of reach in and you'll feel it. Same as with the thigh. I'm going to reach around in there and see where it's at with your finger, and then remove your finger. Get down in there. There's also a tendon right here. You're going to want to cut through that. It'll have some give. You don't want to cut through the bone, but you just want to cut through that tendon. And now we have the bone exposed, so we can go ahead and cut around this bone. Use it as a guideline. Always watch where your fingers are. Always, always, always. Cut away. And then we're going to come up and around. Okay, and then there we have the wing. There's not much meat on the goose wing. Same thing again here. We'll come in right here so we can scour the meat, try to get down to the bone so we can get a better view of it. Feel around for it. Cut through that tendon. And the bones on a goose are a little bit harder than chicken, so maybe a little bit harder to see. But we use the bones as a guideline. Cut through the tendon again. Just going to cut all around that bone to separate. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to flip it over and go to the breast. And I'm actually going to take the breast meat off the bone. If you wanted, you can keep it and get some good kitchen shears and just cut straight through that bone. But I would like to take the breast meat. So we're going to start, first you want to feel where the spine is. And usually, I should say most people, I guess I kind of do it backwards, but most people start with the breast